I'm going to start this one off. We are going to be talking about first Tetris, the new Apple TV Plus movie. Tetris was directed by John S. Baird, written by Noah Pink, and the main character is Henk Rogers, played by Taron Egerton. He is the runner of and programmer for a small gaming company, and he plays this new game on the market called Tetris, and tries to get a piece of it because he knows it's going to be big. And little does he know that that is going to turn into a whole ordeal, because this game came from the Soviet Union and might have been smuggled out. And there's some really shady stuff around the rights to it and who has rights to it and everything like that. And oh yeah, it's the Soviet Union. This movie. Who knew Tetris was so fascinating? And you wouldn't think. I looked at this and I said, okay, we've got a Tetris movie, we've got an Air Jordans movie, we've got a BlackBerry movie coming out this year. Everyone is trying to come up with a new movie to tell about some new thing that became the thing for a while and how it got its start. Everyone's trying to recreate The Social Network. This one is a little different, though. The best way you could probably describe it is it feels like it's like The Social Network meets Argo. It's espionage, it's spying, and all for the sake of a simple video game where you try and drop these blocks down and blow stuff up. I thought it was fascinating. I was gripped the whole time. It is a fun movie. It keeps you engaged. Taron Egerton does an amazing job. You've got some great performances from some other people too, like Nikita Efremov, who plays Alexei. He's the inventor of it. You got to have a guy like Toby Jones in a movie like this. It just kind of feels like a prerequisite. He does a great job as well. Oleg Stefan is another great one that pops up. He plays Belikov, the one who runs the technology division of the Soviet Union government. It's a fun movie. I really enjoyed it. I really loved it. 3.5 stars for me for Tetris. Like I said, who knew Tetris was going to be so cool and so gripping to figure out how it all came about. So yeah, Zach, you're next. What did you think of Tetris?
I thought it sucked, man. I kind of hated this movie.
Shocker.
Well, okay, so I mean, Terry is exactly right that this is The Social Network meets Argo. I mean, that's the way it was pitched in the studio. But there's a third element that Terry ignored, and that is the Apple TV Plus element, because this is also Ted Lasso meets The Social Network meets Argo. Okay, He has a mustache, a very nice mustache that would probably be the MVP of the movie, in my opinion. And he's this American who's very jolly and chipper and hey, how you doing? And very folksy, like Ted Lasso, relentlessly positive. And he's going into this kind of unfriendly territory where
he's a salesman. He has to be pleasantly positive.
Yes, of course. Yes. But I defy anybody to explain the first 25 minutes of this movie. I absolutely dumbfounded. Okay. That was like walking into like a calculus test. And you're like, what the hell is this? Couldn't get past that. And the movie does slow down a little bit. I will confess that I am not in the target demographic for this movie. I did not play video games as a youngster. And when there is a scene when Taron Egerton early in the movie goes to this scientific laboratory and the creator says, you're one of only 10 people in the world to see this. And then it's revealed. And I said to my wife, I think I've seen that thing before, but what's it called? It was a Game Boy. So again, that should tell you more about me and my insight into the movie, which I think is reflective of the not the whole population, but a population. Okay, we're living in a streamlined environment. This movie was obviously tailored to nerds and video game enthusiasts, and I'm sure they will enjoy the movie. I did not enjoy the movie. Okay, I thought it was very ham-handed. I thought it was very convoluted. And basically, you leave the movie believing that the Soviet Union fell and communism fell because of Tetris. So if you're going to make that claim, okay, let's look to your source material a little bit, all right? According to Argo, part of the reason that shit went down was because, it was led to the fall of Ayatollah Khomeini, whatever. But they had Jimmy Carter in the credits, okay? They had the real survivors of it, all right? They had the Tony Mendez or whatever, right? Let's get, Jimmy Carter while he's still with us, or maybe Joe Biden or someone else to say, yeah, that shit really happened. No one is saying that because this shit really didn't happen, okay? There wasn't a car chase through the streets of Moscow, and there wasn't even, and Terry also forgot to mention, this movie has the exact same ending as Argo 2. They literally run on the tarmac to get to the airplane. And then, of course, the whole switcheroo. Oh, those filmmakers are so crafty. They pat themselves on the back for that one. Listen, I just think that this movie is for a specific audience. It is not my audience. I thought the Roger Allam character in a fat suit was appalling. Although 2 actors did just win Oscars for being in a fat suit, so maybe there's something to that. I do think that this movie had a real story to it. It probably should have been a Wall Street Journal feature or Wired feature article or podcast. I think doing the whole overblown Hollywood dramatics of, the car chase, the KGB, the wife at home, the kids who are being threatened, that just undermines the veracity of this story that might have been a pretty cool story. In fact, I don't know why the movie couldn't have just been about the developer guy, Alexei. I think he's got an interesting enough story. You got to throw in Ted Lasso because it's made for Apple TV Plus and they want to get the gamers and the Apple TV Plus people to watch it. But just make a movie about a guy who's being threatened by the government. Hey, my 4th favorite movie of all time is about that in East Germany, okay? And that really worked. This movie is a sad excuse for that. I'm sure some people will like it somewhere. I'm giving it a very generous 2 stars because I'm not in the target demographic for it. I do think people will like it, but I thought it was a pretty big waste of time.
The main character of the movie is only there because he looks like Ted Lasso, not because he was an actual main character in this whole story that made this whole thing happen.
You got to get the viewers. You got to get the hits.
Todd.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you don't know what a Game Boy is, then you probably can't speak to whether the former CEO of the Mariners, Howard Lincoln, was rushing through.
I forgot to mention that. Yeah, Howard Lincoln's in this movie.
Chasing through the streets of Moscow to the airport. I don't know. But I mean, who knows? That probably did happen. But I think, and that scene is really cool. I think the movie has some kind of balls, but the way it shot that and where it was sort of turning into the game, while they were driving.
That was really cool.
But I don't know. The movie has a way with it. It's convinced that the audience is going to care and follow what they're saying. And which is sort of like Social Network, but it's not as snappy. It's more like The Big Short or something like that. And it does a decent job of making it fun. The one movie it reminded me of most was Middlemen, which was the movie that was an underground thriller story about the innovators of online billing and how people can more easily pay for online porn. It's probably slightly exaggerated crime plot in an otherwise unappealing story about how people get rich. That's the movie it reminded me of most. But I don't know, as a business school graduate, this movie is kind of fascinating to me, making meetings, fighting for copyrights, procuring assets, leadership, networking. It probably comes off as boring to a lot of people, but I eat that stuff up. The Cold War stuff is probably the least appealing part of it, but the scenes in Russia are pretty tense. You don't really know when someone might just off everybody who knows anything. And it has a really cool, fantastic capitalist backbone and sort of inspirational story about making your own living, staking your own assets to increase your leverage and not letting circumstances hold you back from greatness. I think he's oh, I've come this far, I'm not going to let a door stand in my way. And that just sort of is his whole philosophy. And it shows the minutia you need to go through to create something, and the bare bones beta versions of projects and intellectual property rights and corruption and crime that comes with the development of anything potentially powerful. I think the movie's really cool, and it's if all these movies about X product are this intelligent and breezy, then I think it's kind of a good sidetracking by Hollywood. Now I'd be okay with it. And the final chase scene is cool, and the Argo type airport intensity, that's cool too. It's a solid 3 stars.
Yeah, I forgot to mention Howard Lincoln. It was really cool to see him as a character in this, and really where he fit into the whole Nintendo system too. And then the going in and out of the video game footage, it felt very almost Scott Pilgrim at times, but it worked. They didn't overdo it. They just used it at specific times, and it worked. Some of the business negotiations almost felt like LA Confidential's interrogation scene. where the guy was just popping in and out of different rooms and getting different stories from everybody. I don't know. It was cool. It was cool.
I think the movie jumped the shark when it had the Mikhail Gorbachev cameo, and like Mikhail says, that Tetris is going to bring down the Soviet Union. It's like, the Soviet Union was already kind of on the verge of collapse. Okay, there was this thing called Perestroika, which The Lies of Others, an infinitely better movie about Cold War paranoia, addresses. But it's like, did Tetris really contribute to something that was already kind of going on in the making of it? And frankly, I was way more interested. Okay, you know what was a good scene to me, although again a little bit unrealistic? The scene where they actually tweak the Tetris game. Like, why don't you just talk about the making of Tetris? Like, why do we have to have all this crazy espionage, John le Carré wannabe bullshit? Okay, let's just make a movie about the programmers, like the first 20 minutes
crazy
of Social
story.
Network.
Yeah, that's the story though. The
But it's
story
so
is that it
overblown.
turned
It
into
should
Russian
be-
espionage.
But it should be a documentary, so we know what's real and what's Hollywood bullshit. Because I couldn't tell, I couldn't deduce the difference between it. I thought that was unfair. I thought it was kind of immoral of the filmmakers to do that. Honor the story by getting the facts right. For Christ's sake, this isn't 1983. Okay, we're better viewers. We're more advanced consumers at this point. We should be able to discern between reality and Hollywood bullshit.
That's Tetris. It's on Apple TV Plus, so if you've got it, if you watch Ted Lasso, apparently, according to Zach, then you'll like
Nothing like
Tetris.
Ted Lasso.
Exactly like Ted Lasso.
The only thing it has in common with Ted Lasso is the main character has brown hair and a mustache and is American in a foreign
from
country.
Kansas. He's from Japan in this movie, although
He's Dutch, grew up in New York City, went to college in Hawaii, and lives in Tokyo.